Back at this job we did about a week ago on the 17th. I think today's like the 25th or something. But this little 45,000 80%er here was running high static, and well, I'll get back to that. Right now I just turned the heat on here and we're checking static because our heat is our higher speed. And right now we got a cheap fiberglass filter in there, and the owner wants to know how it acts with, you know, cheap MERV 2 filter versus a MERV 8 because his children have allergies. So the heating is on yellow, so we're checking static with the heat on. Cheap filter right now, and it's right at 0.5. So we really don't want to be putting you know, this guy in there. You know, anything pleated is going to just throw that thing off the charts. So let's pull this out and see what it does without any filter. You can hear that furnace just said, "Oh, thank you, I can breathe." And it dropped it down to 0.4. So we gained 0.1 with no filter. And if we put this pleated, Home Depot's got their own rating system. FPR, filter performance rating. I looked that up on the internet. It's the same as a MERV 8 filter. So let's drop that in there and see what that does to our static. You can hear that furnace just got louder, and the static went up to 0.6. So I'm going to put that fiberglass back in this one, go up and turn that heat off. It's the actual CFM that the larger furnace was moving in heat. We didn't check cooling. So with the MERV 2 fiberglass filter, we're at 0.5 static, which is where we want to be, and the MERV 8 bumped us up a little bit. So we're already as high as we can be. The next speed up is gray, and it says do not use for heating. So we're kind of stuck with that. So we really don't want to be moving or using that more restrictive filter on this 90,000 furnace over here. Now we're going to fire this guy up and check it out in cooling, because in heating we're on low speed, or no, we're on blue, and cooling is moving twice as much air. So we're going to do our static check in and cooling on this one, where this furnace over here, we had to do it in heating because we needed more airflow for heating because our temperature rise was too high on the factory setting of blue. So we moved it up to the yellow. This one, we left the old 16 by 25 by 1 inch filter boot on here when we did this because it's such a small furnace, but we changed it to a 20 by 25 by 1. I realized we only have a 16 inch blower compartment, but when you keep that filter 3 inches or so off the furnace, you actually get to use that whole filter area. Anyway, we changed it to a larger filter, and it really didn't help with the static, because we've got that cheap fiberglass in there. Yeah, it's right at 0.5. We're going to pull it out, do what we did with the other one. It should drop to 0.4. Right there. And then we're going to check out this filter that he wants to use, the MERV 8. Drop that in there, and right at 0.6, just like before. Putting a bigger filter really didn't change anything, so all we can do at this point is try and add some ductwork, I think, or just live with it. I mean, 0.6 isn't the end of the world. So cooling, We're moving 1045 CFM at 0.6. If we leave this filter, so I'm going to wrap this up. Keep in mind is that, you know, if there's any dampers closed on the supply side or furniture, you can see the damper right there. That's wide open, handle in line with the blade inside there. So both dampers are wide open. You know, is the ductwork big enough? Let's see, that's a 10 by 8. That'll carry about 400. This is like 12 or 14 by 8. Yeah, I mean, we got plenty of CFM sized at 0.1 here. That's what we size our ductwork at residentially. So that's easily carrying the amount of air that it's trying to move. 1045 CFM. So we gotta count up our returns. That's usually where we're short. If we're short on return duct, what is this guy? 16. That's probably a 16 by 8. So rule of thumb. Let me measure that. Rule of thumb is 100 CFM for every 2 inches. Yeah, that's a 16. So that thing is only moving about 700 CFM. So that's our problem right there. That duct, well, no, because we're dropping in. They got something dropping in right in the top of this 20 by whatever right there. You can see that panning coming across right there. So the big question is how many returns are in there. It's 150 CFM per return if they cut the holes big enough. And that's dropping right in the top of that. So what do we say? 700 on that one. So hopefully we got at least 2 returns coming across in that guy. And then you just got to make sure that they're not being blocked by furniture. If we want to add a return, the simplest thing is going to be to cut one in this duct. But if that's maxed out, that's not going to do any good. So we probably want to cut a hole here and run it 10 feet away from this draft hood, because you can't have a return within 10 feet of that draft hood. So that is how we would add return, maybe like an 8-inch pipe. Right off the bottom, jump up, and we'll run it down there about 10 feet and just suck from the furnace room here. Just so we're not downdrafting the water heater.